What's up, gang? Welcome to Room and Board. My name is Chris George, and today we are taking a look at the 5 reasons you shouldn't back Black Rose Wars Rebirth. I know, 2 in 2 weeks. It's not my fault. You're the ones who keep spending all that money. I was going to post this on Friday, but since the campaign ends next Thursday, well, you're getting it now. And if you're new to the channel, welcome. This is a series where I take a game that's doing incredibly well on Kickstarter or wherever and try to provide a counterpoint to the feeling of hype that these large games are so good at providing. So if your wallet is feeling the strain, well, I'm here to help you out. And if you're stinking rich, well, buy the whole comment section a game. You get a game, you get a game, you get a game, everybody gets a game! Wouldn't that be great? And to be clear, I only do these sorts of videos on games that have absolutely smashed their funding goal. And with Black Rose Wars Rebirth having raised over 1 million euros in its first 48 hours, well, I think we can safely say that it's doing fairly well. Because I'm not here to pick on the little guy. I'm here to make sure a year or two down the line, when the game finally arrives at your door, you are as excited then as you are today backing it. Otherwise, why get it? So, before we get into the reasons why not to back, let's first talk about what I like about Black Rose Wars Rebirth, because there have got to be some good things, right? And it's always nice to start out with the positives. But this one is a bit of an anomaly for me, at least in relation to all the other videos in this series, where I really do hope that you can either talk me out of it or talk me into it. Because this one wasn't necessarily on my radar. It was actually brought to my attention by a subscriber who pointed out that it had crossed my $1 million threshold. And so usually I have something that's kind of really drawing me in, but for this one, I haven't quite found that yet. So if I don't seem as enthusiastic about this one as I have versus some in the past, Aridia, that's why. But there is still a lot to like here. It's a board game, after all. Not to mention, you've got Grimigna as one of your playable characters, one of the mages you can be. So I'm instantly favorable towards this game, just based upon the character design. I mean, on the other hand, that might be reason number 6. Not to back is because everybody can't play as Grimigna. How you doing? But basically, the premise of the game is you're these mages running around the lodge, whacking each other with spells, trying to be the best. What I love is that you have these 6 different spell schools. So you have a ton of different spells that you can draft and use to create this cool, unique deck. In addition, that each spell has 2 options on it. So there's plenty of magic happening in this game. I also really like modular boards. It harkens back to my Catan days, where I thought the possibilities were endless. Randomizing the map makes it really feel like, in addition with these different decks and different spells, it will be a new game every time. The replayability here feels pretty great. You're going to be getting a lot of content in this game. Well, hopefully, for the price point. I also really like that the Black Rose, the board itself, can beat everyone else around the table. It's not a cooperative game, it's competitive, but the game can still win. I think that's a really neat mechanic. Not everybody may like that, but I really enjoy that it gives you an additional force to fight against, especially in these sort of free-for-all spell fests where you can kind of get focused on just your opponents, and it's nice to have that other ever-present threat to make things a little bit more cut and dry than just throw all my spells at the person who's in first. The lore also seems really fun. I think it's really cool how they've tied the 2 games together. Black Rose Wars and Rebirth, there's this ever-present story there. That Ariadne, one of the mages in the core box of Rebirth, is actually the twin sister of Rebecca, who was in the other game and has been persistent in this whole line. And even better, they're not using the same sculpt for Ariadne as they did Rebecca. Can you imagine how many people would be upset if that was the case? And outside of the game, I do love to see how far Ludus Magnus Studios have come. The whole Nova Otis line has really grown. They've come a long way since their first 3 attempts at funding the first Nova Atis game. And I think it's great to see, and I think it's worth mentioning because clearly they are developing repeat fans who feel like they want to come back to spend another $100 to $200 on these games. And their funding has only increased as time has gone by. And it also does seem like they have grown and they have learned from every iteration of the games in this specific line. Because I looked through all their past campaigns while preparing this video, and they seem to be constantly emphasizing, oh hey, Don't worry, we've taken the good parts from the last one and put them in this with some even better parts. Now that also could be marketing speech, but hopefully they have peaked and this could be the exact moment to jump in while they're improving all their stuff from the previous versions of these sorts of games. And I also love, especially with a pledge of this cost, that they do have group buy pledges available. I mean, you still have to purchase 10 at once, but if you do, you get 10% off, which isn't insignificant in addition to the cost you'll save on shipping. And I always love it when campaigns have those group buy options and give those discounts. And I always love highlighting them to make sure if you're interested, go and try and find a group buy of your own. So those are the positives. Those are elements that put me on the right foot, so to speak. But there are also some elements that kind of put me on the wrong foot. And that's what you're here for anyway. Not the sunshine and rainbows. Let's get into the dirt. So here are the 5 reasons or more why you shouldn't back Black Rose Wars Rebirth. I'll try to get this in before the lighting changes, but we got a lot to cover. So reason number 5 is that Ludus Magnus Studios currently have 3 outstanding projects. And honestly, this isn't really a big one for me. So don't worry, I'll fill the other 4 to the brim. But it was suggested as a reason by the person who first brought this to my attention. And I figured if it was valuable for them, well, it's for sure worth looking into and might be a valuable talking point for others. But I think they have established themselves now as a pretty viable studio. They have 7 campaigns under their belt. Well, this is the 7th. Well, technically they have 10 campaigns under their belt, but 2 were canceled and 1 was unsuccessful. But they've been around for a bit and have been delivering, and people seem to be happy with what they have delivered. So this isn't going to necessarily be a Golden Bell situation. And if you don't know what Golden Bell is, well, you're one of the lucky ones. But they're a studio that had a bunch of outstanding projects and never really delivered on quite a few of them, I think, and took a lot of people's money and didn't give it back because they're still gonna deliver them at some point. But I know lots of people are pretty upset and don't have faith that that's ever gonna happen. Oh, and they've been banned from Kickstarter and from Board Game Geek. So we're not looking at that sort of situation here. That being said, the delivery will be slow. And this will probably be slower than even the slow-ish Kickstarters, if we're to judge by previous history. The first Black Rose Wars funded in May 2018, and it was still delivering content up until last December-ish, maybe more. And I believe in addition to that, there were some printing issues, some misprints that had to be replaced, some expansions that weren't added into the right box, and a lot of mismanagement of several language packs so that people didn't get the right language or it wasn't clear to the backers who purchased them. It was a mess. A whole lot of stuff that I spent hours reading about. But in the end, they did deliver. So if you are one of those Kickstarter backers that can't stand the delays, who gets upset and wants a refund when there are issues because this was promised this time, well, there likely are going to be shipping issues, and don't say I didn't warn you. But that aside, I really don't think there is any chance that they're not going to come through and they're not going to deliver on their promise. I really don't think that that should be up for debate or needs to be up for debate. They just may not come through in their time frame. Or maybe not. They say development's all done. They may not need this extra sort of buffer time that slows down other things, and it all might be well. But it is worth noting that the more outstanding campaigns that a studio has to fulfill, and currently it's 50% of their line when we think about it, 3 out of 6 because this is the 7th, the more stretched that 15-person Ludus Magnus team is going to be. Again, it's not a big deal for me. I expect these sort of inevitable delays, and I think actually games that do delay and spend more time on development are inevitably going to be better for it. So I guess this is something to be more aware of before you back, rather than something that should prevent you from backing altogether. However, reason number 4 why you shouldn't back Black Rose Wars Rebirth is that the simple fact is that Black Rose Wars the first had a lot of issues. So when I was doing my research on the differences between Rebirth and Black Rose Wars, the general feeling about Black Rose Wars the first is that, yeah, it's pretty fun. It's all right. but there's quite a few things that slip through the cracks. The rulebook is currently on its 6th edit, just showing how much has changed and how often things have needed to change. And even this current iteration of Rebirth's rulebook, and I can't imagine it'll be the last one, still feels a bit confusing to me. To give you an example, since each spell has 2 options, there's a light side and a dark side. That worked out perfectly with this sunset. You can choose which side you want to activate, which part of the spell you're going to cast. But the steps it takes to tell you just how to position the card on your own player mat is unnecessarily confusing and took me 3 or 4 times reading through to understand what they meant. And I'm still confused why it was specified in such a way and also feels unintuitive to me. And that's just this one little example. I also think it's worth noting that if you check the Board Game Geek ratings, the majority of the 10 out of 10s where people say, yeah, this is the best game ever, were at the beginning of the game's history, with a couple of ones thrown in with comments saying, I've got to do my part to take this game's rating down. It's not even out yet. I am the hero this Board Game Geek needs. So when you take the average rating for the past few months, I think it'll work out to more like an 8, 7.5 even. I didn't add them up and figure it out exactly. That's just my guess. And that's not bad by any means. That's a pretty good score on Board Game Geek. But is it good enough for you to spend $250 getting it shipped to you? Because that's what it would be for me after shipping. And I bring this up because I think it is valuable to look through these ratings. And some of these comments were along the lines of, it's way too involved for what it is, or that it's too random with the amount of cards that are in each different spell school's deck. Who knows if you're going to get the right spells to demolish your opponents, or if your spells just won't synergize. And even though they have a new way to shorten or extend the length of the game, that's not necessarily going to stop that sort of involved setup time that each game requires with its various decks and various setup of your initial hand. That's not going to change the amount of symbology that exists that you're going to forget, or the clarity of the rules, or the closet cases of those rules that aren't readily available to you even after 6 iterations of the rulebook that you just have to accept on the fly. Yeah, well, we're going to do it this way. Or that the mages only have the appearance of asymmetry and really they kind of all feel the same, since you can always draft from every single spell school and the only thing that's really different are your first couple starting spells. I mean, that's almost 5 reasons in itself right there. So it's good to be aware of these sorts of issues before jumping in. But that was Black Rose 1. This is Rebirth. It's gotta be different, right? Well, no, reason number 3 is that it's basically the same game. I mean, it's the same game. It really is. I know, it's not technically a reprint and there's different things going on. And this time you have pain magic and last time you had a different magic. And it's true, there are different things going on. In Black Rose Wars, number 1, you compete to be the Great Magister of the Order of the Black Rose. And in Rebirth, well, everything's been destroyed, so you guys have to compete to be the Great Magister of the Order of the Black Rose. Another big difference is that Black Rose Wars has this modular hexagonal board made up of a bunch of rooms that changes each time. And in Rebirth, the mages will fight each other in a modular hexagonal arena made up of room tiles. It's the same game. I haven't played either, but I've read both their rule books. And there are some passages, explanations, that are almost word for word copied and paste. And yeah, it's going to be the same game because it is the same system, right? And there still are some slight differences. One that they're highlighting are the avatar mechanic, which are basically, it seems, evocations for the Black Rose. Basically little figures that it'll summon that'll also attack you. I can only assume that's what they do because, yeah, you guessed it, the rules aren't written yet. They also make a big deal, or a small deal, or a regular deal in the FAQ that there's gonna feel like there's such a difference between destroying the rooms and rebuilding them. But not only does it not feel different, you still place instability tokens on the rooms, which makes sense when your magic is going out of control and you're destroying everything around you accidentally. Once a certain number of instability tokens are on a room, it gets destroyed. But in this one, you're so unstable, you're recreating a room? I mean, all that being said, this may actually be a positive for you because there are different schools of magic and they are making these unique magic decks because they need to be unique since you're able to cross-combine the different versions if you have both. But because you're getting basically the same game, you're also getting it with hopefully less misprints, less issues, and implementing the little fixes that needed to happen in the first iteration. Honestly, I think this is as close as you can get to a reprint of the game while still pretending you're not a reprint of the same game. Because there are a lot of different. I know the different spells and the different magic probably took a long time to create and test, and I'm not saying it's just slapped together. But as far as I can tell, the general sentiment on the internet is usually, oh man, I got so much Black Wars stuff that I haven't even worked my way through. I do not need any more Black Rose Wars content, but this is great for people who want to jump in. So I don't know if you need it if you're a returning backer, unless it's your #1 game of all time. And since it is so similar, I don't know if you need it as a new backer, because you could just go out and buy Black Rose Wars for a cheaper price. If you look at Fun Again Games, they're offering it for $65, 25% off. It's increased slightly since Board Game Co. pointed out that they were offering it for 50% off. But still, $65 compared to the $150. These are both in US currencies. And you can get it now versus waiting a couple years down the line. That might be appealing for you. I tried to see how much stock they had, and it seems like they would let me buy 5,000 copies if I had $325,000. So apparently their supply is endless at Fun Again. So it depends what you want. More refined and later, cheaper and now. And you can just make those little rule adjustments whenever you want. And that brings us to reason number 2, which is there's an incredibly high barrier for entry. I know we're talking about price again. I hope this doesn't feel like a tired point, but that entry point of 129 euros or $152 US or $192 Canadian, ridiculous price point to enter a game at, especially to jump in blind if you've never played Black Rose Wars. I feel like you have to be crazy about the minis or really enjoy collecting them and painting them, because they make great minis and the sculpts look pretty fun. I mean, I honestly thought the Witcher sculpts look kind of better, but Ludus Magnus has been known to produce pretty high quality miniatures. But I feel like you need that aspect to be interested in this game. Or maybe not, but I don't know, because it seems like the rest of the components are pretty much just cubes, cardboard, and lots of cards. So the majority of that expensive price point has got to be going towards these miniatures. But that's only an entry point. After shipping, I've already mentioned it cost me $250, and you can currently add 93 euro worth of stuff on top of that. And the campaign's half over. So you know there's going to be more add-ons down the road. It just seems excessive. And I have to compare this to Iridia, because people, myself included, went crazy over the 165 price point. But that's basically the whole experience right there. Here, it seems like the price just keeps rising and rising and rising. And after shipping, Iridia cost me $239 and Black Rose Wars would cost me $248. So I guess you have to ask yourself if hurling magic balls at each other seems fun enough for that price point. Or could you be equally happy with something like Super Fantasy Brawl, Fray, Champions of the Everyverse? I know that was a lesser known Kickstarter that I almost backed. Or Epic Spell Wars, if you just want an excuse to hurl magic spells at your friends. For me, it's too much for what it is, because I feel like at this price point, it's gotta be something special. So if you're backing, make sure there's something about it you can't turn away. It shouldn't just be another 8 out of 10 game to sit on your shelf filled with 100 games. At this sort of high barrier of entry, you better be worth it. And finally, moving on to number 1, and this is honestly the reason why I'm not excited about the game. All the other stuff aside, for me, the number 1 reason why you shouldn't back, the campaign feels really disingenuous. Now stay with me, I can feel the Ludus Magnus fans sharpening their spell swords, ready to hex me at any moment. But the campaign feels just greedy, and I don't really have a better way of describing it. It's been really off-putting for me. For one, they aren't accepting a €1 pledge. There's no $1 pledge, which has become pretty much standard for any board gaming Kickstarter. To get you access to the pledge manager at a later time, you know, if you don't want your credit card being charged $200 right at this moment. But on top of that, if you just pledge €1, or if you did some sort of partial pledge, maybe because you don't have enough money to buy the game outright and you still want to have fun and contribute to the stretch goals and be notified of the updates and participate in the campaign, that amount is considered a donation. Doesn't even go towards your pledge. So don't do that. Don't contribute to try to get more stretch goals if you can't pay the whole thing up front, because you'll just have to pay that money again. In addition to that, to qualify for the early bird 48-hour bonus figure, which, surprise, surprise, 85% of their funding has come from, since there are no €1 pledges, and you don't have the option of deciding later on to upgrade and get the full game and get this as your bonus, paying the €1 insurance fee, so to speak, you're forced to commit that €129, and they are counting on you to not cancel your pledge. They are counting on you believing you have the best deal right now at the $150, because if you don't pull the trigger, it'll cost you $160, $170 down the line to get the same product. Because for those who don't have the money right now, in this shorter 14-day campaign, which as far as I'm aware of, people still get their paychecks on a 14-day rotation, well, screw you for being poor. You're going to pay extra in the pledge manager because they want to reward the backers who supported them in their campaign. And I understand that. I understand this sentiment. I don't think it's necessarily the incorrect thing to do. It's nice to support backers who are there with you from the beginning and who believed in the product and who have been championing this thing and helping it get made. That's great. I think that's perfectly reasonable. But when you actively prevent people from supporting you at a lower pledge or a lower amount than what you choose, when you prevent them from getting involved in the campaign and participating in that excitement, in the voting of which path of the manor you should head down next to unlock the next daily unlock, which sure actually doesn't matter because you can just say that whoever you were going to unlock is in either of the two places that the person just explored. It's not like they're making up the stories, so they can put whoever they want wherever they want, irregardless of anyone's choices. But when you're actively pushing people away and not giving them that opportunity and saying, well, yeah, we'll take your donation, but then you still have to pay more in the pledge manager. Or we'll take your donation, and it's cool that you've been following this campaign since the start, and you could have gotten that 48-hour bonus, but you didn't contribute enough to be recognized by us as a supporter, so we're not going to give you that thing, and we're going to charge you more. It just feels greedy. Plus, as far as I can tell, it's a bad business decision as well, because you have to pay Kickstarter 5% of whatever you raise. So wouldn't it be better to get more backers at that $1 pledge level so that when it gets to the pledge manager and they pay you the full thing, you don't have to take off that 5%? I can't imagine that a pledge manager takes more than the 5% that Kickstarter would take. It just sets me off. And I would love for this not to feel disingenuous. I really would. I would love for Gramigna to take the second most important place in my heart. Maybe the 14-day campaign isn't close the deal on people who are unsure sooner. Maybe it's just because they don't have enough daily unlocks to fit the 24-day campaign that the previous Black Rose Wars had. Maybe there's some sort of incredible logistics to juggle these €1 pledges that just makes a lot of work for them and it doesn't seem worth it. And they're not just trying to jack up the prices or instill the fear in you that you're never going to get as good a deal as you are right now, so do it. Do it. You better do it. You're going to pay more. But to me, it feels like you're trying to give your backers any reason not to drop their pledge within the 14 days other than the strength and belief in your game. And on top of that, keep trying to make more while you're at it. Having the 5 to 6 players as a $30 add-on when you know you're going to be getting additional mages in the stretch goals. So why not throw in the few cubes and tokens needed to give your players a 5 to 6 player experience in the game? Why not add an avatar pack for the returning backers who just want to add this new mechanic into their already existing copy of this same game? It feels disingenuous, especially when there are campaigns out there that are going out on a limb to give their backers more and more and more for less and less and less. Or maybe because I know this is also coming from the studio who canceled DEI, when it was at 200% funded, just to bring it back at a more expensive price and not give those who had previously gotten a discount on an early bird special that same deal when they returned. Although, to be fair, in that instance, they did add a meeple version, and they say they included more content in that initial price point than they did in the previous one, which is why they had to jack up the prices. I mean, did you need to? I don't know. I'm done. I just want to stop talking about them. And this is already a much longer video than any of the previous iterations of this series. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Usually I give an update on to whether or not I'm backing it, but I think it's pretty clear I am in no way, shape, or form interested in backing Black Rose Wars Rebirth. To me, it just doesn't draw me in. It doesn't have that oomph factor, and extenuating circumstances don't make me want to give it the benefit of the doubt, especially not for that price point. Sorry to end on what felt like a bit of a downer or a bit of a slog. If you are excited about Black Rose Wars Rebirth, know that I am not trying to take away that excitement, which seems odd after what we've just been through. But really, I hope you love it. I hope it is your #1 game of all time and it provides you with incredible experiences and you are super happy with your purchase. A lot of people are. Tons of backers already, and they may get more in the final hours. I'd love to hear from you. Why are you backing? Why do you enjoy Black Rose Wars? Why do you think it's worth the price point? Do you think I'm being unnecessarily harsh? Which I might be. Maybe these sorts of marketing tactics designed to separate you from your money are prevalent in every campaign, and I'm harping upon this one unnecessarily. I know I certainly feel like I'm being maybe a bit more critical on this one than I have in the past. So please let me know if you feel like I'm too harsh and why. Or just put a thumbs down and run away. Don't tell me. And also, should we separate the game from the campaign itself? Maybe #1 doesn't matter. Sound off in the comments below. For me, maybe I've just fallen prey to too many unrealized money schemes. I've been hurt too much before, and I never even backed anything from Golden Bell. Anyway, that's it for me. Thank you so much for sticking with me until now, through the sunset together. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up on the way out. Once again, my name is Chris George, and I don't have a catchphrase, but I think I have come up with one just now that is entirely my own and has never been said before, which encapsulates all of my sentiments towards you, and that is that I hope you all have a good one. I can't believe nobody's thought of that before. Simple, nice sign off. Bye.